Benvenuti familia. This is Ray's Talk Show, the talk show that helps mid-career professionals escape the cage of an uninspiring job to find career and personal satisfaction. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're looking for an online community that will support your personal development, brand management, and ultimately help you on the path to find wealth in your voice, you've come to the right place. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your virtual big brother, Ray Collazo. We appreciate everyone that's watching on the Blab platform. We're here. Ray's Talk Show appears live on blab.im every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And again, for those listening on the podcast platform, we always appreciate the original Ray's podcast audience, which you can always find on our website, bigbrotherray.com, or download on iTunes or anywhere you can subscribe to a podcast. This is a very special episode today, and we're going to help people today really sort of build for those struggling, whether it's an offline business owner looking to develop an online presence, someone that just wants to develop a platform for themselves. But how do you truly build your online community, even if you're starting from scratch? Who better to help me but my co-host in that conversation today, but Maria Florio. Welcome to Ray's Talk Show, Maria.
Hi, Ray. Hi, listeners and viewers. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first Blab as a co-host. So I'm very excited to talk about this, and I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely. And my less than stellar attempt at Italian was an ode to Maria, who's a paisana. So
yes.
And when I first connected with Maria, she said, well, I don't know much about Italians. I was like, Maria, let me tell you something. You grew up in Philadelphia. You know a little something about Italians, my friend. So definitely a lot of love for the Italian community. And Maria's a real Italian. She's going to Italy
yes.
next month. So
I am not next month. Next week. Next week.
What they call there's a lot of Italian guys on Sports Talk Radio in Philadelphia, and when non-Italians call in to talk about they say non-authentic Italian references. They say Medegan. You're Medegan. They're Medegan. Everybody in Philly's a Medegan on some level. But we all got into conversations. But Maria Florio, my co-host today, is a versatile entrepreneur with a passion for helping others reach their highest potential. She's a content marketer, author, and co-host of the Make a Difference podcast. Maria, again, thank you so much for joining Ray's Talk Show. What drew you to being part of this conversation today?
What drew me, Ray, was you and your inspiration to help people in a transitional phase. Your podcast topics, I am a firm believer in. Well, not a firm believer. I'm passionate about helping people, especially through a transitional phase. We've all gone through it, and online marketing or being online in general can help people who want to start a business or even just pursue a passion to get that out there. It's an easy way to connect with other people, and that's how I found you.
That's right. Well, we appreciate it, Maria, and I forget I believe it was a Blab concerning podcasting and sort of like this online broadcast game. And there was all these, a lot of testosterone in that Blab. Maria was holding it down for the ladies and had a real good spirit about her. And we've been connected ever since. Again, I want to thank our friends Kelly and Felix who have joined us here on Blab, and other friends have joined on the live conversation, and we'll allow them the opportunity to join the show for both our video and audio listeners to get their experiences in a moment. We're certainly not, Maria and I are not total authorities on this or super gurus. We're just people that have some experiences that we would like to share through our journeys to kind of help you ease some of the pain you may have in beginning an online platform. Indeed, Maria and I have a passion for helping people develop their platform so they can share their life-changing gifts with more people. That's really all it's about. And today's episode is so timely because I'll tell you something, every day, Maria, literally every day, someone comes to me and says, wow, I'm a realtor and I just have no idea I use social media to expand my business. I'm so bored at my job. You don't understand, Ray. I just want to do something exciting like you do and do something different. I'm unchallenged. So the people that I believe in my tribe are people that many of us would perceive and view as successful, relatively speaking, in their personal lives and in their personal and career lives. But they know there's something more there. It's a nag, or it's something that's troubling them. So we want to help people in that position build their online brands, understand they can escape the cage of the their current mundane career, and really, as we like to say, show their stuff to the world. So Maria and I have developed a top 10 list, not like David Letterman's list, not quite as funny, definitely good information. We're going to have some laughs for sure, but really an essential top 10 list for building your online community from scratch. So Maria, before we share our tips, and you actually are going to introduce the first one, before we get into that, why do you think, Maria, this is such an important conversation?
It's important because we all start from somewhere and we all have questions. And really, it's not about gurus or influencers. For us who are actively doing it, the basics are all the same. It's about getting started and making it simple. So thanks to this top 10 list, hopefully it will be enough to get someone started and pursue their passion, be happier in their life, whether they stick to their job or not. Being able to build an online community can help you express that passion, express that interest, and connect with people that have the same interest with you.
Absolutely. And you just hit on it, Maria. And so let's just go right into it. We're going to get into the first essential tip for building your online platform. Again, even if you're starting from zero, from scratch. So Maria, you really in sort of putting this list together, your first one really sort of hit at really kind of where we need to begin. So what's our first tip for those looking to build their online platform?
Yeah. The first tip is your why. Your why. It reminds me, and I don't know if others have heard of him, but Simon Sinek, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct, but I came across his video on the why. And the why is your passion. The why is your reason. It needs to be meaningful. It needs to be meaningful because, well, one, it's something you have in your heart that you're obviously, if you're contemplating starting something from scratch like this, there's a reason behind it. And it can be a passion to share an interest. Maybe you want to help people. Maybe you want to instead start a business. So the why is where you start from. And defining that allows you to not only know who you will be talking to and who you're looking to interact and connect with, but also in times of challenges, because growing an online community takes time, takes patience and perseverance. Right. If it's a strong why, then you will keep going because you believe in it.
That's right. And, there's, we need to have Maria a separate episode just to discuss the power of why. Whereas my man Felix would say the power of por qué, the Potencial Millonario in the building. Always great to see him on Blab. But it can go in many directions, right? So really what sort of brought me to this point where I had to make a choice and really say I have to embrace my why was I was up for a promotion that not only did I not get, but they brought in someone outside the organization and essentially demoted me to report to this person. And so, it's nothing personal against that person. And at the end of the day, organizations and companies make decisions. But the bottom line is that I went through a lot of negative, a dark period, relatively speaking, kind of trying to figure all that out. And at the end of the day, it illuminated to me that my struggle wasn't that I really wanted that job, because I really didn't want that job, if truth be told. But my struggle was that it forced me to confront what was the real issue, which is I wasn't listening to my heart to follow my dreams. Mm-hmm. And what happens with so many of us, and I talked about it in an episode recently, is that, that those feelings come about in different ways. Sometimes it's through a crisis where you sort of feel forced to do something much different out of necessity. Sometimes it's sort of a slow burn that eventually becomes like a big issue. Sometimes it's kind of like one of those jarring moments for me, which at the end of the day, nothing really happened, but it forced me to kind of really, what was really bothering me here. So, the why can take a lot of forms. And the bottom line is that the why has to be bigger than the why not.
Oh, yeah.
So because like you said, Maria, in those dark times, ultimately, when I think about, and it's crossed my mind once or twice in almost 3 years of doing this, it's, is it really going to happen? Mm-hmm. Am I really wasting my time? And why am I losing sleep? And why am I kind of, most of my friends at this stage in life have they're not even thinking about dreaming anymore. They've retired dreams years ago. And when I think about, and I see my little boys and I say, I don't want them to ultimately think, your dad was cool, but it wasn't, he settled on some level. I just don't want that. And that to me there's not much thing stronger than that for me. Now it's going to be different for every people. Some people it's just,
Yes.
it's a talent they need to share, or it could be a lot of things. Maria, what's your why?
My why is I believe in what I feel is my purpose, which is to help others, to inspire others, however I can. It doesn't have to have a shape, but that and I was going to say, your why never left you, and our whys never really leave us. It's about paying attention
That's
to
right.
them or noticing them at a
That's
certain
right.
point. But you noticed, something wasn't right, and it's because the why you weren't being able to express your why in the way you wanted to express it. So
right.
awareness of it and knowing that you don't have to leave. It's scary to make change. So you don't have to leave what you have, but acknowledging your why and being able to pursue it online, which is exactly an online community. It doesn't have to be for business. It can even just be for your passion to connect with others.
Sure could be, right? Yeah.
So
that's right.
And I have a question for you, since we're talking about starting from scratch. When you decided, I guess, to start building your own online community, how did you go about doing that?
Well, it actually speaks to our second essential. Great setup, Maria, because I really believe very passionately that if you're to begin developing an online community, even before you kind of figure out your target audience and some of these other buzzwords and steps we're going to talk about later in the list, I'm very passionate about the fact that you need to start producing content. And again, it could be tweets.
Yes.
It could be commenting on articles on LinkedIn. It could be, in my case, it was podcasting, where I felt that was really kind of the beginning. Again, not knowing where it would lead.
Yes.
Because in my case, and again, I do politics basically as my day job. I thought podcasting would be an avenue for me to become one of those like talking heads you see on TV all day and night, all the time now. And then when I started, that was my thought.
Yes.
But then when I opened my mouth, the conversations I was having with friends really were pretty accomplished people in their own right. The conversations really were a lot deeper. And then ultimately what I realized was the thing that was pulling me away from my day work wasn't because it's not a good organization or the work isn't satisfying, is that it's because I feel called to serve people in a deeper way than, and day to day you see in the politics, I'm probably being proved more and more right, that we're going to have to find other solutions here. So I'm really a big believer, and, we all do it on some level, that you can't stay a social media voyeur. You just can't just be looking from a distance at conversations or platforms or, just watching influencers, gurus, what they're doing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We all follow the bigger fish in the game, right? On some level, which is, to learn. But I really believe you have to produce something. Again, even before you have goals, even before you have, kind of
a strategy,
an idea, a strategy. I think you need to be producing something. It's like, every stand-up comedian tells you, the most successful stand-up comedians tell you, you're going to suck being a comedian for a couple of years. You might as well start now, and it's just because, a lot of people, especially diligent people, I find it a lot with women professionals I work with that are very detail-oriented, that they want it to be perfect. They want to, that's why a lot of them don't come on me at 10 o'clock. Their hair's not the best.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just all these dynamics. But the bottom line is that until you start, how are you going to know what your voice is and how are you going to get to where you need to be? So I really believe that's really important. What are your thoughts on that, Maria, about the importance of producing content?
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. And also starting to produce it allows you to explore yourself, allows you to explore your interest. I mean, if you're not producing it, you're just thinking it and maybe having conversations, which is fine, but it's a limited conversation. The beauty of online is you can share it with other people who really want to hear what you have to say. So you have to produce content, and there's so many ways you can. Like you said, there's podcasting, there's blogging, there's just, commenting, engaging with others. There's so many communities you can start engaging on, getting seen. And so producing that allows you to exchange ideas with others, but it allows you to get a better idea of who you are, what you really want to say, and to slowly start thinking about that and get seen and connect. So
that's right. And it also gives you feedback.
Yes.
Because you make assumptions about what's going to resonate with people, but until you present it and you share it, you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed about, there's just certain topics that I speak about and we've done on the shows I've done well over 200 episodes of Race Pod, as a
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And, we've probably done about 25, 30 blabs at this point. And I'm always amazed at what I learn
Yeah.
in terms of what resonates, what doesn't resonate, what I think people are going to be really excited about, and nobody, and there's no sharing, there's no engagement, other stuff. And then also about yourself, the kind of feedback people give about how you present the material, constructive criticism, area knowledge bases that people believe you have that you don't really kind of perceive. So there's so much to it. Somebody said on a blab last night that I was watching that they said, no one's ever become successful by themselves.
Yeah.
And, how are you going to know truly what your true gift is until you start spitting out and
Mm-hmm.
letting people share it and consume it? The third tip here, and again, we're talking today with on Ray's Talk Show about sort of the 10 essentials. If you want to start an online brand, online platform from scratch, you just don't know what to do, or you've been doing it for a while and kind of dabbling with some things, but you kind of want to do a reset. We're providing our 10 essentials for kind of starting your online platform, even if it's absolutely from scratch. Before I get to number 3, really quickly, Maria, why don't you let people know where they can find you on social media as we continue this conversation?
Yes, you can find me at Luna12780. That's my Twitter handle. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Maria Florio. I'm not going to spell out my URL, but Twitter is actually my favorite platform. So that's.
Yeah, me too. So we're gonna, Twitter's quickly becoming not the cool kid anymore because Snapchat is taking over the world. But that's another conversation. We talked to our Snapchat homie last week, Carlos Gil, much respect to Carlos, and so many of my friends that are snappers, that are dear snappers. The third essential I wanted to note here on our list about, well, how do you build your online platforms from scratch? And I see this so much with particularly successful professionals that want to change their direction, is as you're thinking about what kind of content you're going to develop, focus on your skills and your passions, not your resume. So oftentimes what I find, and I deal a lot in my day work with leaders, people that run in either nonprofit organizations, small businesses, maybe people that are or have been local elected officials, people that have run things and had, kind of have an offline brand in their careers, and they don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But then they're concerned that just turning to the internet, they feel compelled to, or another option, they feel constricted by their resume. And one of the things I share with those people is that, if you've run a social service organization, even if you don't want to provide those kind of services anymore, you have management skills.
Mm-hmm.
You have fundraising skills. You have leadership skills. You have expertise in that field, whether it's health or education, that you can utilize in many other areas and serve a whole other set of people. So, Maria, what's your thoughts about
that's so true
about people focusing on their skills and their passions, not their resume?
Well, it's interesting. For a long time, I found myself trying to combine my skills and my passion. It's one of those things that in time, as you think about it, you can blend more and more together. I think it's the perfect blend. Your passion is your drive, and your skills, if you're creative about your skill set, because yes, it doesn't have to be closed off into, that was my role, so that's all I do. No, what you've developed during that job can go in so many different ways. And I find some people have a really hard time doing that. They've worked in a bank, so they think they can only work in banks. And it's like, no, look at what you were able to do during, whether it was managing a team or learning to use a specific program. You can apply that skill in another job or in another thing that is with your passion. Usually a passion revolves around a topic. It's going to need organization. It's going to need you to know how to use certain programs or be able to build a strategy, and your skills. And especially as you grow in your career, that skill set grows to such a number that it can be utilized if you're creative and think outside of the box and just step away a minute and say, okay, wait a minute, I actually can do this and I can apply it to my next project.
Absolutely. And the last thing I would say on this, and again, each one of these essentials is a whole other episode in itself. And
yes.
And we will likely at some point do that. We'll dive into these a little deeper as we go along in this journey here on Ray's Talk Show. And we've touched on these issues before, certainly. in terms of online platform building and brand management. But I would say the last thing I would say on this piece is that what I don't want people to interpret in our comment here around sort of matching skills and passions as you develop content online. Don't so much focus on your resume. Don't feel constricted by your resume. Is that I'm not saying that means that you're not going to have to learn new skills to do this. So for example, it took me 32 episodes of Race Podcast to figure out how to get Race Podcast on iTunes because I just couldn't figure it out. I just couldn't find a resource. I kept Googling it. I just couldn't figure it out. But I didn't allow that. Now I had to learn that skill, and I eventually did. Shout out to Ray Ortega, who somehow I found his website, and he basically had like a nice blog about how to do it. It turns out it wasn't that hard at all. But I must say that that didn't preclude me from starting. So I just put my stuff on SoundCloud. The first 32 episodes of Race Podcast are on SoundCloud because I said I'm not going to not produce content because I'm in this learning curve around some of the technical elements because I feel compelled to produce, to serve. And the stuff was really rough, but some of the rawest, in a positive sense, kind of material I produced is in those first episodes, and one of them was probably one of the highest episodes I ever had. So so definitely something to think about. You're going to have to learn new skills. There's no doubt about that. But the next, talk to me, Maria. You've got actually a few here in a row. Give us the next essential for building your online platform from scratch.
I would say network. For me, it's network because that is where you start spreading the word. And usually it's families and friends. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes it can also be colleagues because as you branch out from what you're doing, there's plenty of colleagues that aren't necessarily competitors if it's a business. If it's interest, it's easier usually because actually your family and friends are a great support system that can help you spread the word. And it is very important to connect to influencers, not necessarily the gurus or the fake ones, because honestly, I don't necessarily favor them. I like genuine. I believe in genuine leadership. And those are the ones, yes, and they are the ones that will support you actually and your endeavor. So the network is important because you can't grow without a network, really.
That's right. And how did you find Maria in terms of, did you basically start with your network of family and friends? And what was the initial reaction when you started putting an emphasis on sort of online marketing and on content development?
For me personally, actually, my family and friends are not the network that I shared with, simply because for online marketing, for example, it's a skill set or it's a profession that I need to reach out to an outside network, and my family is in Italy also, so I'm starting to network there thanks to them. But when it comes to the US, I networked through freelance jobs that I got initially. That is how I expanded my network, and I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to connect to influencers that I follow that I see are genuine, and they do help. They have helped me to meet people and grow. So
awesome. Yeah, no, it's interesting because when I first started, I didn't feel I had a choice, so I just started sharing, pretty much on Facebook with family and friends. At that point, I didn't have much of a Twitter presence, and then 3 years ago, Facebook was, it's still Facebook, but it was more of a dominant influence than it is even now because there's more choices now. And it was interesting. On one hand, I didn't assume everyone would be feeling it, but I would say that. And that was the case, not everyone really kind of got it. But friends who I didn't think would care were really into it. And to this day are fans.
Yes.
Friends you thought would be right up their alley,
no,
they could care less. I think, to be honest with you, and this is maybe more of a personal thing, is I've always been a yapper. I think some of the people closer to me are just like, oh, Ralph talking some more. Like, okay, which is okay. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it is what it is. But so it's just, it is interesting. But I think the biggest thing I got out of it is that what the support I got, partially was because of the content itself. But I think most of the support that I've generally gotten from my community, my personal network, has been because they're inspired by the fact that I do it. Just period. The fact that I put myself out there, the fact that I have the chutzpah to, I know this is an Italian flavored show, but we're multicultural here at Race Talk Show. Just that I had the ganas to just do it and get it out there. And in my network, podcasting, that was 3 years ago. Podcasting was kind of a foreign. They didn't understand it. They didn't know how, it just wasn't something that that they consumed it, for the most part. So so the fact that I was like the first podcast that they ever knew of was, again, it gives you. But again, if I didn't start, none of that would happen. You wouldn't have had those.
But it is,
and we started.
It is interesting the fact that the ones you thought would support you don't really. I had the same experience with the survey I was doing for a book I'm writing, and the people I thought would support me and would send feedback or respond to the survey didn't. Perfect strangers helped me more than the people that I knew. So,
well, Maria, I'm fortunate in that I had run for office 10 years ago, and I had already gone through this experience. You want to know who your friends are. Run for political office, and so I've kind of gone through this, and because I've been involved in politics and organizing and leadership, it's the same thing over and over again. You go through the same emotions, same dynamics. All these people are hating it, and so I was prepared for it, and it wasn't a surprise because I'd gone through another iterations of my life. But on some level, you just got to keep moving forward. The bottom line is that. And it's not one of my top 10. It's just kind of an axiom of mine, is that being a leader in the beginning sucks because, it's like John the Baptist. Like, what are you talking about? Huh? Oh, yeah, the Son of Man's coming. Yeah, God's, like, it's, when you're kind of in the lead and others will follow. So it's just part of the process, and you just have to be prepared for that. Maria, give us the 5th essential tip for building your online platform from scratch.
Always offer value. Value is fundamental because, you start something. Yes, it's a passion. Yes, there's your why. But how are you going to grow community if you're not sharing something of value with them? I mean, if it's just you wanting to be heard, why would I have to follow you? Or if you're just trying to sell, like, why? Growing a community means you want them to come back to you. If they're going to come back to you, there has to be a reason, which means you're sharing information. You're sharing something they're inspired by. Or you're sharing a tip. So the value really gets them coming back. It gets them to share your content with others. Like you said, the ones that did follow you and still follow you, they were inspired by what you had to say. It's also about resonating. You're going to hit the right people with, everybody has their niche or their topic. So it's not, not everybody's going to want to hear what you say. Not everybody's going to agree with what you have to say, but the ones that resonate, it's because you're offering value to them.
That's right. And that's part of the, kind of from like a social media perspective, kind of like that's why it's so important to sort of get in the game to begin with, right? Because when you're sort of a social media voyeur, when you're just sort of like consuming, but you're not providing something, then, obviously people you're not gonna be able to grow your network, your own voice. And what is then the incentive for someone that's in the game, someone that's providing value, whether it's free or paid, and going the extra mile to, go on your show or, I see this all the time and I'm pretty a friendly person, but one of the times I must say that I get sort of pissy on Blab in particular is when you get these whiny blabbers that are like, oh, I invited, kind of the bigger people on Blab, like I invited Joel Comm or I invited so-and-so on my show. They didn't come on the show. It's like, first of all, you're annoying. Second of all, then, what kind of, why don't you begin a relationship and provide value in the relationship? And I think that, and you never know kind of what people are going to see as the biggest value point, but if you have a giving perspective, they'll tell you. And again, that also being giving and offering value also, again, you'll learn about, yourself, you learn about what your market is, you learn about your target. I'm always amazed by, and I'm talking about Latinos specifically, that the biggest piece of positive feedback I get about the content that we produce, Maria, is that Latinos, I'm talking about people that are from our community, that are from the Latino community, are amazed. They're like, how do you know all these amazing Latinos?
Yes.
And it's kind of it's kind of a weird kind of dynamic, but that is my network, kind of full circle, right? My network brings not just me, but the network of people that I'm around, whether Latino or not, it brings a lot of value to these communities. So it's so important, and it's one of those things where how I look at it is that and Felix and I have talked a lot about this, that in, unfortunately, kind of the old school paradigm was kind of like, hey, Guru, how are you, brother? Is that, you kind of get yours because the pie's not big enough for everybody. But there's just so much we all can do and learn. And it's so great to see people that on Blab and other platforms that, are technically like competitors in a
Yes.
space, but are collaborating. And it's, what are your thoughts on that piece, Maria?
I,
The power of collaboration.
I think that our tendency is to collaborate, and I think the ones that don't are getting it wrong. People reaching out, the what you said before, giving. When you offer value, you're giving, and when you're reaching out, you're connecting. And when you're genuine, you genuinely care, like you, Ray. You know all these people because you care and because you're open to connecting. So, cooperation is part of what humanity is all about, honestly. There's enough to go around. If it's a business, there's enough to go around. You don't need to compete. Of course, in a strategy, you're not going to necessarily share a direct competitors, for example, a sales pitch or whatever, but that doesn't mean you can't connect with them and talk with them. And there's things that you can learn from them. They can learn from you. It doesn't have to be, a battle to the death or whatever. I don't remember the saying, but I'm in favor of cooperation, and I believe that it is our tendency.
Absolutely, and I get often that in the in the podcast space, there's more podcasters than ever before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have these conversations about, well, how does that impact? I thought there was a op-ed that went out in social media. I'll put it out on Twitter about someone saying that the NPR franchise, which has brought a lot of attention to the podcasting world, is sort of squelching the rest of us because it's sort of setting a standard or an expectation of what a podcast would sound like, the format, the style, the sort of, the sort of, if it's not like NPR-ish, it's not like a real podcast or not perceived as something that would be considered widely successful. So, but the bottom line is that how I look at it is that if that brings more people to understanding podcasting, there's more people that could potentially watch us, the smaller people. So there's no question about it. Maria, what's our sixth essential tip for building your online brand from scratch? Even if you're starting from the bottom, now we're here. Like Drizzy once said.
Well, it kind of ties with our collaboration, following and reciprocity. I do believe if you're going to try and grow a community, that means you need to follow people back. Whether they're a potential client or a colleague, you should engage with them. You should follow them. It's not nice not to. And it's also, how are you going to grow if you're not following?
Yeah, now this is an interesting conversation, particularly with the Twitter community, that there's sort of a debate around, do you follow everybody that follows you? Do you, is that necessary? Is that really authentic? Do you consider that to be your long-term strategy? And that, I'll be honest, what I find is that I sort of started doing that in the beginning. In the last few months, I've sort of started doing that less, just because it is a lot of people to sort of try to keep up with. What's your thought about that?
Well, for one, there are tools that you can use as your community does grow. There are tools that help you to do that quickly or faster than, one by one on Twitter in particular. But the ones you don't want to follow are bots. If they're a bot, or if you're not really sure who they are, you don't want to follow them because they're probably spammers. And then if they are direct competitors, really, they shouldn't be following you and you not them, technically, because you're competing for the same clients. But other than that, if it's someone that's a human being, an individual, and a colleague, or someone that can have the same interests as you should follow them back. It's proper etiquette for the social media marketers. They do that. And if you don't do that, it looks bad. There's a lot of influencers that don't. I call them influencers based on their number of followers. And honestly, to me, it's sad to see that, because it shows me that are you really a leader? Do you really want to lead people? Or are you just there to grow your own self? It's showing me that you're kind of narcissistic in that sense.
It's definitely an interesting debate, and definitely one of the things that, besides sort of the technical question, which around, to technically follow, or not, is the bottom line is that you want to have you want to create a brand based on mutual respect. So,
Exactly. Yes.
so if people engage you in conversation, whether it's through, comments on your blog, or I guess there still are comments on blogs,
Yes,
or
there
there's,
are.
or there's mentions on Twitter, or whatever or a question here on a blab, whatever the sort of level of engagement is, that you have an authentic two-way conversation. And it goes back to the value point that we made earlier, is that you, as much as you can logistically keep up with it,
Yes,
most of
yes.
us can. We don't. Most of us don't have that level of audience, that you are looking to be helpful to people, and try to connect like-minded folks together.
And if you do have that level of audience, you probably at that point have someone who's assisting you and
Very,
supporting
very
you.
good. That's right. And likely several. So
Yeah.
before we get to the seventh essential for building your online platform, even if it's from scratch, even if it's you feel like you're kind of restarting, or literally starting from scratch, I just want to thank people listening and watching Ray's Talk Show. This is your virtual Big Brother Ray Collazo. We have Ray's Talk Show every Tuesday and Thursday night, live on the Blab platform, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. You can also catch the replays of the show, as well as catch the podcast version of the show by subscribing to Ray's podcast on iTunes. Anywhere you can download or subscribe to a podcast. You can always go to our website, bigbrotherray.com. That's bigbrotherray.com. And again, I want to thank the people watching live. Kelly's giving a lot of great information. She says, yes, tons of influencers, quote unquote, don't walk the talk for sure. Kelly, you
Yes,
need to
they
jump in this
don't.
conversation. Let's get
Yeah.
some names. Let's start gossiping.
No,
See
we don't.
posts God, let's make some controversy on Blab anyway. But we know what you're talking about, Kelly. We got you, girl. No worries. And Donna, of course, our associate producer, our booking agent here on the Race Podcast Network, is in the building. So it's great to see Donna. And Guru of Geek, one of the best Twitter handles on the airwaves here, is in the building. So I appreciate people chiming in, and we'll open the chairs in a second. The seventh essential, I believe very strongly in this, is niche, niche, niche. The more targeted your platform building is, the better it's going to be. And I'll give you a very simple example. There's a woman online. I don't have her name in front of me, but there's a woman online who I heard on a podcast recently, and she's a social media marketing person, but her whole focus is to help dentists in Tampa.
Mm.
That's it. She doesn't deal with doctors. She don't deal with ophthalmologists. She don't deal with heart surgeons. She don't deal with anybody. No eye doc, nothing. No foot doctors, just dentists, because it's a particular niche. They have, in many cases, they're sort of like single, they're kind of one people shows,
Yeah.
and unlike hospitals that have more resources, and for whatever reason, she identified them having some of the greatest needs around social media marketing. So she literally, if she can't get there, and she doesn't even have a car. That was part of the conversation on the podcast I heard. So if she can't get there with a reasonable amount of Uber money, she don't serve them. So she has a very, very targeted niche. And so I feel that's very important because, and I'll share my story. I mean, when I first got into podcasting and sort of online platform building, I thought I was being smart and said, okay, I'm going to focus on Latinos because that's like the growth market. There aren't that many people doing it. That wasn't a bad idea, but the reality is, what a surprise! Latinos aren't all the same. So it was at the end of the day, it was way too broad. Now at the same time, I find that while I'm niching down within the Latino market, what I find is that also is too small in some sense, because my message resonates with people outside the Latino community. And so as I've developed it, and next month I'm releasing, sort of relaunching the Big Brother Ray brand, is that really it's coming into focus to me that my brand ultimately is really for mid-career professionals, people like me in many respects, that want to make this breakthrough, that are source-oriented, talented. This concept of, even if I get a promotion, if I get 2 promotions, okay, so if I make another 15 grand a year, is that really going to be life-changing? Probably not. So, how can you really do this in a way that truly builds the kind of platform your talents does merit? I mean, I'm very passionate about that. And, roughly some demographics, I kind of have a sense of kind of who feels it more than others. But the bottom line is that process has taken me 2.5 years to kind of figure this out in some way. And I still haven't totally figured it out, but the more you kind of focus on narrowing down and who's really going to be your tribe, your audience, And ultimately, if you choose to do this for business purposes, your clients, the better off you're going to be, because you're going to be able to really zone in on what's going to give those people the most value. What's your thoughts on the power of niching, Maria?
It's very challenging, but it is powerful. And we all need, especially if it's a business, the best way you can grow that is to go niche, is to is to have a niche. I'm still working in a sense on mine because, it starts with small businesses or family-owned businesses, but it can get even more in depth than that. I want someone who's passionate about what they do, for example, who knows the long-term investment, the long-term, who's in it for the long run, because that's what I'm like, and that's the type of client that I would want. So the location is important. The more you can narrow down who you're serving, who you want to help, or what that interest is, one, the easier it is to reach out to them. Two, the easier it is to focus your content around them as well. It isn't easy, and it probably transforms through time. There's a transformation, and sometimes it changes a little bit, and sometimes then you go back to what you started off with. But niche is powerful because if you start broad, you really don't have a focus and you're talking to too many people. You can still do it, but it means you're distributing your energy in a sense very, very far, which makes you powerful in the message you're trying to share and in the growth.
Absolutely. One of the things that I struggle with on this niche piece is that part of my struggle is that I want to help everybody. I really do.
Exactly.
And one of the things that kind of pains me about it, and one of the things that really drives me with this is my why, is that I just, I'm just so blessed to know so many really superstar people. I mean, just character, talent, personality, just a great, they could just be doing so much. And, I have to kind of come to the realization that they have to kind of want it, though, at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Because as much as I was excited for them, I was on the phone with somebody, literally till 11:30 last night, telling them about all these. They've been doing music. This guy is a music DJ, radio announcer. Has been doing. He's had a radio show on FM radio in New York City for 20 years.
Wow.
And it's so it's been a side thing, and he hasn't really kind of focused on it being anything more than that. And I'm talking to him about, you could take this in so many directions. And, at the end of the day, but I said, ultimately, it's got to be what you want. I can give you 5 ideas about how to do it, but at the end of the day, it's got to be what you want. So your niche has to be, if you're going to be doing this for business, your niche, part of that criteria has to be people that are willing to that want to take their brands, their lives in some way to the next level. The eighth essential for online platform building, even if you're starting from scratch, is find a platform or platforms that work for you. I think one of the things, Maria, that is so frustrating, that is confusing many of us, particularly people that aren't millennials, is that there's so many things we could be doing.
Yeah.
In every given day, and I see my dear buddy Felix here, who's also a podcaster and a blabber. He's on Anchor now. So I feel like, he's my buddy. So I got to be on Anchor, and I got to do that. I got to do that. I got all these snappers. And I'm like, oh no, I haven't figured. I'm so embarrassed. I haven't figured out how to do Snapchat. I'm on it, but I feel
don't feel bad. Really, you don't have to be everywhere.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. But I definitely think it's the focus has to be what fits for your style, your personality. Podcasting works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. So one of the things I want to note here, Gary Vaynerchuk has been in the media. I think he released his book literally today or yesterday, his new book, which is a play off his video series, Ask Gary V, the hashtag. But I wanted to note that he wrote a book a few years ago called Jab, 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 Right Hook, where he talks about basically kind of the do's and don'ts of utilizing these social media platforms. And I'm just going to read some chapter titles, which again is, very basic summations of the strengths of these platforms. So he sums up Facebook in terms of the power of storytelling. So tell your story on Facebook, listen well on Twitter.
Yep.
Which is interesting. Glam it up on Pinterest, which is kind of funny, which obviously the visual stuff, and very female oriented Pinterest, but also very commercially oriented, which is good. create art on Instagram. And that's where all the beautiful people hang out, Instagram. And I've kind of resisted it, but I'm starting to put our stuff out there a little bit. Maria, how have you kind of thought about this piece as you've chosen what platforms to focus on?
Before I move forward, Kelly has something good to say. Yes,
please.
Find out where the majority of your target audience or community hangs out, and that is where you go. And that is how I agree with Kelly as well. There are so many online platforms. There are so many ways you can create content, but ultimately you want to go where, the people who want to hear what you have to say or want to buy what you're selling are. So you don't need to be on every one of them. You can't be on every one of them, especially if you're starting out from scratch. You need to focus on some. I like Twitter because it's engaging. You can connect with people of any level in a business or community, and you can talk. It's fluid conversation, and you share. But Facebook, for example, is one of the biggest platforms, and as they integrate video and they integrate different ways of sharing that content, different content that you can share on it, it might be the one spot where you can start, because you can invest in Facebook ads if you want to grow your community. And you can also share, a video or pictures or just text. So Pinterest, on the other hand, for example, is a majority of females. Yes, it's retail, but if there's a majority of females, and let's say you're a brand and you're not selling to females, do you really want to be there? Instagram is changing. Now there's slightly an older age group. So you should watch it, because maybe if that age group does grow more, then it might be good for your business or community. But ultimately, if it's for pleasure and for passion, then you can be more flexible about how you choose it, and it can be based on how you want to present what you're sharing.
Now, one of the things that I think I've probably, in all fairness, have probably not kind of kind of squared away for me is the balance of the platforms that are my comfort zone with the platform where my customers are. And one of the things I'm suspecting, as I kind of look at my analytics around kind of where I'm getting the most reaction from my content, is I think my content and my audience, I'm determining recently that I have to invest more time building my LinkedIn, strengthening my LinkedIn community, because when I share content on there, I get a really good reaction. And I think it's because kind of the demographic, the nature of the kind of people on LinkedIn. So I and that's not a hard thing. I have a profile there. I have about 1,500 friends or something, or connections. So it's not like I don't have a presence there, but I think I have to be more, in terms of utilizing like groups, and that's kind of my next step. And there's a big buzz around developing Facebook groups now. And that's something I'm going to be exploring. And there's a good podcast episode. I'll put it in the show notes from Internet Business Mastery that gets into sort of the do's and don'ts of how to utilize Facebook groups. And that's kind of the hot thing, utilizing private Facebook groups and sort of creating that VIP experience, and using that to sort of do commerce, but build community, build value, build that sense that you're part of this, kind of special group. So Kelly, you need to have the courage. That is what the show is all about, Kelly, is to get the courage. What I don't bite. I mean, what so I talk fast.
I know she'll come on,
Maria
Kelly,
and I are
join
good. We're
us.
like fire and ice.
Yeah,
we have, yin yang thing going on. So
yes, we do.
Well, feel free. I'll slow down if you'd ice though. But that's right. Guru Pete says the audience bites though. Well, that we need to have that conversation. So, but no, anyone that's watching the show live on Blab, feel free to jump in. The conversation on the chat's been excellent, but you're certainly welcome to join. The ninth tip we have here, in terms of the 10 tips for essential tips for building your online platform from scratch, or reinventing it, reshaping it, what have you. Email is your best friend. There's a lot, constantly people are debating the effectiveness or the ROI on email, but the bottom line is, when if someone visits your website, the odds of them, and there's no way of capturing or staying connected with them, the odds of them coming back is less than 1%. If you have your email and you communicate them on a regular basis, your odds certainly increase significantly. So what's your thoughts, Maria, about how to utilize email? I probably get it. I don't get emails out as much as I would like. It probably ends up being once every 2 weeks, just because of time constraints. But I do find that it certainly is a good way to keep up with people and show people you're providing consistent value, and also to test kind of what resonates with sort of your core audience. So, what are your thoughts about the how you utilize email, Maria?
My first thought is make sure you have time to do it. Because it takes, besides you're building your own community, you're building your email marketing list. So I think it's definitely something you should include if you know you have the time, at least once a month. Figure out the time you have, because you're going to produce some content in there as well. But yeah, email marketing, it's a way to remind them that you're there, not to be obnoxious. I do not like the ones that send you emails every day, like 2 or 3 emails. That's way too much. But once a week is a very good approach, especially if you're sharing value. Again, if you have podcasts to share and they listen to you and they've subscribed and they've given you your email, they probably want to hear it, so why not send them a weekly reminder, or every time you have something new coming out, share with them something.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find is that when it comes, you're talking about sort of the frequency of emails, is that a lot of the people that I listen to, the some of the good guru guys and gals, what they find is that if again, you're targeting, you have the audience that really is your loyal audience, that are your email followers, not just all of your friends, right?
Yes.
And you're providing that consistent content. Those people don't mind regular emails, and in fact, at times will request more, because you're providing them what they're looking for, and you're not just just sort of spray sort of spray shotting your stuff to a bunch of people, many of which may not care. I find that in my email list, about 25% of them are really my audience. There's a good chunk of them that are, on some level, friends or colleagues on different levels. And I don't think they mind getting the emails, but, I can just tell from open rates that, it's really about a quarter of them that are really my core audience. So, and Coach is in the building again. Good to see him. Maria, why don't you share with us the 10th and final, even though I've got a bonus one, then we'll let people ask questions, and we can wrap up the taped version of the show. But we'll hang around for people to answer questions and continue chatting. What's our 10th essential here for building your online platform from scratch?
My 10th and another one of those, well, they're all important, but do not buy fake followers. I don't care what platform you're on, please. Not only does it screw with your analytics if you're a business, but also you don't know what you're getting yourself into. Like, yes, it gives you that idea or that look that you're being followed, but you really don't want to do that. So that's the 10th. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very lucky because I don't even know how to do that. I mean, I hear people talk about the fake follower thing, but, and it's particularly a Twitter phenomenon where people are like obsessed with like these vanity statistics. But the bottom line is you can have all the followers you want. But again, I'll go back to the example of my list. I mean, the reality is it's really like, instead of worrying about growing my list, I should worry about that core group I have within my list that are really feeling what I'm talking about and are enjoying the content, because they don't mind the frequency. They give feedback, they give interaction, they participate on blabs, and they're welcoming this information. So I should focus on taking care of them, providing them value, instead of worrying about some big vanity metric.
That's how you're going to grow your community.
It's not really going to matter. So Maria, and again, as we encourage anyone to jump in the chairs. We'd like to get your thoughts. We certainly don't have all the answers. We could have made this list 250. There's so many core things, and we'll have other episodes to take deeper dives into some of these points that we brought up today. Coach, Mr. Del Gerard is here, and others. Feel free to jump in the chairs. Aaron, I believe, was in the chat at some point.
We have a couple comments in the chat. You want to read them?
Absolutely.
Or shall I? Yeah.
Go jump in, Maria.
So Kelly, for the email, she says there's a new Gmail plugin out that basically warns you when you use words that undermine your email message, which is kind of cool. I agree. And Felix talking about the fake followers. I hate that fake following. I think it's unethical. I agree, especially if you're trying to get sponsored someday. Totally,
Absolutely. Well,
Felix.
Felix is a very ethical guy. So always great conversation here. The other thing I wanted to mention to people that, again, for those that are listening to this that may be newbies to it, if you have emails or you want to start your email list, there's many very well known. There's, I mean, too many to get into here. There's a few big boys, but there's literally probably a dozen that are very common that people use, email data management systems. That in the beginning are going to be always free, if you have, until your list becomes pretty significant. And, you can utilize those tools. They have tutorials. You can, plop your emails from a spreadsheet into them and start managing your emails. So, and we'll put some ideas in the show notes. Maria, what do you use a data email management platform?
No, not yet. I do have, MailChimp. I have MailChimp, but I'm not active with email just yet. So
okay, yeah. So I need to get more involved. But if people have their favorites, I know that in the nonprofit space, Constant Contact, in the circles I run in my day job, is probably the most popular. For obviously MailChimp and Aweber are probably the biggest sort of in the online entrepreneur, content creator space. So, but there's many options. Crystal, great to have you here.
And we have a question.
Yes. Yes, Maria, you had mentioned tools for Twitter. What are your favorites?
Well, my only Twitter tool is Manage Flitter for the follow and follow. And I find it also good and useful to be able to research your target audience.
Interesting.
There's a search section. Yes, there's different ways you can do that. So Manage Flitter is the one. I'm also a big believer in picking a couple tools that you can use and, yes, you want to know what's trending, but you want to use what works for you. So I'm not going to go look for something unless I have to, because the tool that I'm using at the moment, isn't, unless it's going out of business, I'll keep using what's working for me.
Very cool. And what was that one again? I'm not familiar with that. That sounds interesting.
Manage Flitter. Manage Flitter. Yes,
it's cool.
And there is a free version to follow and unfollow. Then if you get a paid version, you can add accounts and you can have added ways of filtering through there you go. Guru of Geek. Put it in there. Yep.
Yeah, no, and Coach says he uses Zoho, the free one right now. I did use Constant Contact in the past. Felix Montalada says he uses Buffer for scheduling tweets since I have a 9 to 5. I use Hootsuite for that purpose as well.
Yeah.
And I'm able to use it for Facebook, Twitter, and I'm using it for LinkedIn. I haven't gone there with the third-party app for Instagram, and and I'm not using it for other ones. I find they're kind of clunky. But that's not all that. I will tweet organically and do Facebook posts naturally throughout the day. I just use that to make sure if I'm working that, the content that I want to promote or the content that's coming up, particularly my blabs, which, are always, there's one coming around the corner at some point.
Yep.
Pistol Crystal, what a great handle she got. Pistol Crystal. She uses Sprout Social, if this, then that, and Buffer. Very cool. And other people are joining in. Thanks again for everyone joining, Coach in the building, and all of our friends here. I do have one bonus one, but again, if people want to join in, we certainly are welcome to either take questions live on the camera, or people just want to join the conversation. Again, me and Maria are not gurus. We're just people that have gone through this journey, want to share our best practices and get just people thinking, just kind of get over that mental hurdle about just getting started and really kind of honing in on how you can really reinvent yourself on a personal level, reinvent yourself and develop an online platform. Another bonus one I want to suggest, I think it's very important, and you're talking about probably a $50, $20 investment for a whole year, is if you don't have your own name or a version of your name URL, buy it today. Even if you point it to your Facebook page or point it to your Twitter handle or point it to something, you got to own it, because at some point, if you're going to do this even semi-pro, you're going to want to have your name, and just even for career purposes, you want to control that brand, that identity. So just a little tip for you. Maria, have any other little tips like that you wanted to share? Well, bonus tips.
No, but I had I had a question more than a bonus tip. I was wondering, what was one of your biggest challenges when you started building your online community? Because
Yeah,
we've
I
talked
think.
about solutions, but what about
Yeah, yeah.
challenges?
I think. Well, I think on a very sort of technical level, I'm not a tech person. I'm not a tech person by nature. So the technical piece with podcasting was tough, I must say. I mean, for me, it was, and part of it was just, having to swallow and make the investment financially for microphones and things like that. But, there was a learning curve for me on the technical thing, just sounding good, or good
Mm,
enough, right? And, just kind of the basics around, having intro, outro music and having decent sound quality. I think, and then the other thing was just kind of a niche, and just sort of focusing. So I started Race Podcast, and that ended up being a menagerie of topics and focuses. So I was doing this kind of stuff. I was doing political stuff. I was doing sports stuff. I was doing kind of a lot, and I still do a little of this, kind of more, kind of, for lack of a better term, like Latino issues kind of stuff,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
pop culture stuff. And look, if I had a 4-hour radio show, it's a little different. Right? You can kind of share. It's kind of expected. You're kind of bounce
Yeah.
in and out of different personalities. Adam Carolla can do that because he has an hour and a half a day, and he's expected
Yes.
to bounce around. That's part of his persona. But I think, and then I got distracted because I found, and I still find, that there's so many needs,
Mm.
particularly for diverse voices in these spaces. So I created like mini podcast networks, and I had women doing Latina specific stuff. I had a bunch of guys that, I recruited a bunch of guys to do like sports talk. And I had, at one point, I'm producing 7 shows a week of these different formats. I'm doing a baseball show in the summer with my brother, and I'm doing this. And it was just, so I find that a lot of people have too many talents, and there's a lot of things you could do and a lot of things you enjoy. And
Yes. Yes.
and it's great that I see people on Blab with like 3 different types of format shows, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should be doing some of that. But I said, well, I got to take a step back here. I got to, like, I'm trying to build, like, I'm trying to build a skyscraper without the foundation. So
I need
that
to
was
focus.
yeah, focus, and that was kind of my challenge. What have you found, Maria, that's been one of your challenges doing this?
Before we go to mine, I wanted to share what Felix had to say, which he says his problem was learning to use social media, just to start. And that is one of the biggest challenges. I think at first social media started out, it was really a way people treated it a little bit like a sales thing. Like, I'm going to go and just share all my stuff. It's a way to get it out there. And then they figured in or about engagement. So, but also I think analyzing and realizing you don't have to be on every platform as well. That's one of the biggest things. Again, not spreading yourself thin is important, and learning where you want to be, because of where the audience you're talking to can help.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Maria. You're so right, because one of the things I did want to mention in our comments here on Race Talk Show about the 10 essentials of building your online platform, even if it's from scratch, or you're reinventing yourself, or you feel like you have to do kind of a restart in this process, is, I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people, particularly that I network with, they misinterpret the phrase social media to the fact that they can't use these platforms for anything other than, sort of light banter or light interaction. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that if they were to use these, the fact of using these network, other than maybe like a LinkedIn, which seems like that's the specific purpose, but using
Yeah.
Twitter, using Facebook for something beyond just kind of connecting with family members, they just have this mental hurdle about it. And then also, which isn't easy all the time, is that balance between how do you utilize, when to utilize social media for personal use, essentially, and to share on a more private, relatively speaking, level with friends and family and intimate
Mm-hmm.
relationships, and your overall brand. And honestly, nobody has a great answer for that, because all of that is fusing in our modern society. So it's that's a bigger conversation, but definitely, you can use these platforms for networking, for business development, brand development. I mean, there's so many things. Felix Montalada chimes in. I was getting banned and blocked since I did not know how to use the proper content. Well, that's interesting, Felix. So, there's lots of lots of growing pains here for many of us. I did want to mention that going to the earlier conversation, resource for people, if they want to kind of take a deeper dive in reading some information about sort of that issue around what kind of exercises you can go through to sort of think about combining your knowledge, skills, and passions into a brand. I recommend Content Inc., which is one of the seminal books in the space by, I would imagine, a fellow paisano, Joey Pulizzi. Sounds like a good Italian boy's name.
Sounds like
one of your
Italian.
people, Maria. So, but then again, I don't know. I think I shared with you, Maria, but I was given a scholarship at my high school graduation by the Sons of Italy Society. I was a good Catholic boy, and it was sort of hysterical because when I went up to receive the award, you saw the look on their face like, I guess we didn't check on that last name. I guess Colazzo was Collazo. So that was kind of funny, but I proudly took it for my representing for my Italian heritage. I'm sure my name does have a family crest in both Spain and Italy. So I'm sure along the way, the Colazzos were
the Spanish reigned in Italy for some time. So
it happens, right? So and the other dynamic, and then I've met many people in Philadelphia, again, big Italian community. Both my neighbors where I'm sitting are not only both Italians, but they're Sicilians. But he's like a real Italian. One makes his own wine, and it's delicious. The other one's got this incredible garden, and then one of them, they're good. They're really both very good guys, Camilo and Tony. And one of them, he's a real Italian. He's a Sicilian from Hoboken. Okay, I mean, he's a real Italian guy. Right? He lives in my part of the world, closer to Philly now. And his thing is, he pulls me aside one day, he starts speaking to me in Spanish, and I'm like, Tony, you're a 70-year-old Italian guy. He goes, Collazo, yo vivió en Venezuela 7 años mi vida. The guy lived in Venezuela from the ages of 19 to 26 years old. I said,
wow,
Tony, that's like your golden party years. You were in Caracas? And he's like, see. I'm like, okay. So really good people. And obviously we're our communities are very close and cultural in many other ways. As we wrap this up, Maria, again, I'll stick around. Obviously, if people want to chit chat about Italians and Latinos, what have you, we can lighten up the mood or talk about Maria's impending voyage back to the motherland. We can do whatever. What other thoughts for our podcast listeners, Maria, and people that are going to watch the replay? What other thoughts do you have? Closing comments about building your online platform from scratch.
Patience and perseverance. The why is important, but you have to also, remember patience. That was one of the things that, I'm luckily, I had no choice, but I grew calm as I realized that patience was part of the process. And I am a firm believer everything happens at the right time. That patience allows you to have learning lessons as you're growing your online community. So be patient. Don't get upset. Keep that why strong and just keep believing and keep on offering value. You'll get there.
Absolutely. Maria, remind people they can find you on social media and plug your services. What kind of work are you offering to clients nowadays that people may be interested in?
Social media marketing to build your strategy, to manage your platforms, content marketing as well. And you can find me. I will share my Twitter handler. It's the shortest one, at Luna12780.
Very cool. Very cool. And again, we really appreciate everyone watching the live Blab. We're on Race Talk shows on the Blab platform at blab.im every Tuesday and Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And as I say, whatever time they feel like it is in Arizona, we will spring forward, but they'll just do whatever they want in Arizona. So you just never know what time it is there. Is it 2 hours behind me? Is it 3 hours behind me? So, and of course, I have all these colleagues like Donna that live in the desert. So we have much love to our folks out in the desert. And again, if you're a mid-career professional or you're just someone who feels like they're at the crossroads of your career, of your life, and you're just, I say that it's a crossroads, but essentially you know which way to go. There's just a toll bridge there. You just don't know how you're gonna. A, you don't know how you're gonna pay for that toll, and B, you're not sure if you have what it takes to pay the price for that toll, and the kind of sacrifices and the kind of getting outside your comfort zone it's going to take to pay that toll and go down the road you really should go, because that's going to ultimately what's going to lead to personal career satisfaction. And ultimately, what's going to provide you the opportunity to find wealth in your voice and service the maximum amount of people possible. That's what the Raise talk show community is about. And thank you again for hanging out here with myself and Maria
Thank you.
at Ray's Talk Show. And again, for folks hanging around, we'll stick around for the after party. And for those watching the replay or listening to the podcast, you can again check out all of our content at BigBrotherRay.com. Check us out on Blab, as well as subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. On occasion, we have podcasts that are exclusively audio, which I imagine we'll be doing. We'll have some exciting content on with some of the travel I'll be doing, which getting some exclusive interviews, which you can also only find on our podcast. So definitely subscribe to Ray's Talk Show on iTunes or anywhere you can subscribe to a podcast. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, people.